welcome you all to Trek Wars.
So today we'll be learning about the JemHadar attack fighter, which is the main attack ship of the Dominion Empire. We're going to be taking a look at some of its statistics and some of its data, and we'll be putting them against the best of the Federation and Klingons. So the JemHadar attack ship has a length of 95 meters. It has a mass of 2,450. It has 42 crew members. It has a cruising speed of warp 5. Has a max speed of warp 9.6. It is armed with 1 photon torpedo launcher, 3 polaron beam weapons, and 1 rear-mounted weapons turret. Okay, so we'll talk about some of the special features about the JemHadar ship. So one of the unique things that the JemHadar themselves can do is they can fire through your shields with their polaron beam weapons. They can transport through shields with their transportation technology, and they are capable of beaming from extremely far distance. So the JemHadar can beam people onto stations, onto places, and they can be up to a sector away. No other race can do this, and we see the JemHadar do this with the first encounter that you have with the JemHadar with Cisco, with one of the first times they come across a female Vorta. So they are also, when Deep Space Nine is interacting with this ship, they attempt to scan it, and they cannot scan or penetrate the ship's hull, which is not an uncommon trait with a lot of ships. Specialized metals and stuff can allow ships to offset that. Now, it's also very hard for ships to track this ship. So on top of it being small, maneuverable, it's very hard for sensors to actually pinpoint this ship. That's one of the advantages to the specialized polarized armor that this ship has, or it's part of the navigational deflector. It's speculated by Deep Space Nine's engineer that there is something unique about the ship's navigational deflector, and so when they also attempt to tractor beam the ship, they're not able to. Now, obviously, in later episodes, one of these ships is derelict and just sitting out there, and they take it back, and then they're able to learn about it and rebuild it back up, and they use it for their spy mission. But so that makes me think that it's not actually that the metal itself that it's made of. It's most likely the navigational deflector, which is what O'Brien had originally suspected. So I believe that to be actually correct. So what that means, as long as there's ship power, you can't tractor beam it. You can't see what's on the ship, so it gives you some tactical advantages. The ship can obviously transport from a long range. The ship is also very tough for a ship of its size. It's able to enter atmosphere. It can also withstand quite a bit of damage to its hull from flying into a nebula. So the ship itself is tough. It's a very tough and very small ship. Now, we're going to kind of talk about its stats here, and some of the stats that we have is we do know that they do have a photon torpedo tube, and we do see a rear turret on a lot of these ships, but we don't see them throughout most of the series use any of these weapons. So I have a speculation that there are different versions of this ship, and that's why you see different kinds of weapons on different JemHadar fighters. So the ones we see in the beginning, the first encounters, were obviously using some kind of pulse beam weaponry, and they weren't using polaron beams. Now, later versions, we see them only using polaron beams. So it is possible that some of these other ones are some kind of scout version of the JemHadar fighter, and that the combat version, the mass-produced one, only has 3 polaron beam weapons, and that's why we only see it. Now, there is something that I do want to talk about this, is this may seem very strange to only have polaron beam weaponry on a ship, but then you also need to take in consideration that the JemHadar can shoot through shields. It wasn't till later on in the war where the Federation figured out how to stop this. So using torpedoes is kind of obsolete and useless when you think about that. If you have a weapon that penetrates through the shields, then why would you waste your time with torpedoes? So that's why I think maybe only certain variants have torpedoes, like maybe a scout variant or something of that nature. So with that being said, we see that JemHadar ship has shields around 325,000. It has a hull value of 195,000, and it has an overall defensive value of 520,000. Now, some of the interesting things about the ship is that its mass is 2,450. Now, I don't really think that this is correct. And the reason I don't think this is correct is because this ship is equivalently the same size as a bird of prey. And if you look at a Klingon bird of prey, a Barrage class, has a mass of 236,000, all right? And then it has an armor rating of around 0.8. And birds of prey are a pretty tough ship in the Star Trek universe. Now, if I was to convert a formula to match what we see with the Klingon bird of prey and then what we see with the Dominion ship, the Dominion ship that has a mass of 2,450 would have an armor rating of 36.32, which is absolutely insane. Now, if you were to go and you would realize that they forgot a couple of zeros, and we look at a mass that's similar to other ship designs in the Star Trek universe, which I honestly believe the ship mass really should be 245,000. And then that would give it an armor rating of 0.79, which is almost the same as a Klingon bird of prey. Now, the reason why I say that is because when you see this ship run into a Klingon bird of prey, you can see that the ship is almost identical in size. It's very, very similar. Now, this mass of 2,450 is like the size of like a small runabout or something. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think this is some kind of error on the part of the writers, or I know it's in the Deep Space Nine manual it says this, and you know, a lot of these Star Trek manuals and stuff, they make mistakes in there, you know, wrong ships, you know, that kind of thing. So it's not really that uncommon. I honestly think this was something that because they call it a JemHadar fighter, and they weren't thinking about that this isn't really a fighter. It's a small ship, but it's the size of a bird of prey. You know, a bird of prey in the original Star Trek series is a cruiser. You know, it's not like there's 2 or 3 people flying this thing like a runabout. Like, this thing is a pretty strong ship, and it's a pretty big ship. It's not like microscopic or anything. So I don't think that that really makes sense. And obviously, I'll leave that up to you guys to decide if this discrepancy is correct or not. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the shields. So we are aware that the shields on this ship are not as strong as a lot of other ships. They're on the weaker spectrum. So 325,000 is not very much. So we know that 10 Klingon disruptors from a Barrage class will take down the shields. We know 13 shots from a Type 8 phaser and 1 torpedo will also take down the shields of one of these ships. So we know when it comes to shields, these ships are not counting on their shields. Shields are not a huge aspect. Now, for a ship that's pretty small, the shields are okay, but they are a little bit on the lacking side. And then now we'll discuss the hull of 195,000. Okay, so throughout the war, we have seen a lot of these ships get destroyed, and we have a lot of different scaling that we can use. So we know that overall the ship's value is 520,000. So we know that 16 pulse phasers from the Defiant will kill one of these ships. We know 3 standard torpedoes from DS9 will kill one of these ships. We know 4 quantum torpedoes will kill this ship also. We also know that 20 disruptors will actually kill this ship from a Klingon bird of prey. We've also seen 14 shots kill it, and we've seen 6 shots kill it. and then we have seen a heavy Klingon disruptor from the Volta class cruiser will take this ship out in just one shot. Now, at the very, very end of the Dominion War, we even see a modified Galor Type 3 use its heavy spiral wave disruptor cannon and is able to one-shot this ship. So overall, the defensive capabilities of this ship are, I would say, a medium at best. Like, these ships are not going to take anything out on a one-on-one that's anything that's a modern warship. This ship is very much lacking when it comes to defense. Now, offensively, this ship is spectacular, especially for a ship of its size. Now, I will have to admit, for a ship as small as it is, having the weapons that it does and having a moderate shield on it, and then having all the technology that this ship does have on it, I think that its shield technology is lacking because of all the other equipment that is on this ship. So for a ship so small, it is very specialized with lots of powerful sensors. It's got powerful tracking devices on it. It can target you very well. You know, its navigational deflector can stop tractor beams. I mean, there's all kinds of unusual Dominion technology on this small attack craft, which makes it dangerous. And I think that the reason why the shields are not so strong, per se, is because, number one, the ship's really fast, it's maneuverable, and number two, it is hard to even target this ship. So it's relying on its speed and maneuverability, and I don't want to say it's a cloaking technology, but the fact it can kind of run at a stealth, it makes it hard to target. And so that's really where it's counting on survivability. Is obviously it's not counting on its shields, and its armor is good for a ship of its size, but in the big scheme of things, fighting big attack ships, it's not going to do a whole lot. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the weapons. So we know they all have 3 polaron beam arrays, and we have 1 torpedo and at least 1 rear turret. Now, we know they have a rear turret because we see them use a rear turret on the episode where we first engage the Dominion. And this is when I believe the ship is the Odyssey, where it's the counterpart of a Galaxy class that gets blown up when one of these ships runs into it. Now, there's some things that I want to talk about that ship. So we know the polaron beam arrays are equivalent to a Type X phaser. This is stated, so we know how powerful a polaron beam weapon is, right? Now, the torpedoes, we don't really know how powerful the torpedoes are. They could be using an older torpedo like the 65,000 megatons, or a standard 171. Now, I would think most likely they're using 171, but being the ship is so small, and they don't really focus on torpedo technology, they might not even be using a very powerful torpedo. Now, the reason I do think it is 171,000 is the episode where the Defiant gets the torpedo, doesn't explode, and it's lodged into the ship. Now, a torpedo that bypasses the hull and gets into the ship, and it was doing, the 65,000 megaton, would do a lot of damage to the Defiant, but it wouldn't kill the Defiant. Now, 171,000 inside the structure itself could be very damaging. So, with that being said, I think it's using 171,000 or 171 megaton torpedo head, which doesn't really calculate correctly, but when my formula is, it stands for 171 points of damage. Now, the rear turret is really what I want to talk about. Now, a lot of people think that the rear turret is another polaron beam array. That is not correct. It's absolutely wrong, because a polaron beam hitting a runabout, because you remember the first encounter, they're not using polaron beam arrays, they're using something else, and it's far weaker than the polaron beams. They're shooting like a pulse, and they hit the Odyssey something like 15 times, and then the Odyssey is still surviving that. Now, obviously, a Galaxy class starship with its shields down, getting hit by a 65,000 terawatts is like being hit 15 times with the Type X phaser. You would die. So we know for a fact that that at least those versions of the JemHadar fighters are using some kind of other weapon of some kind, and it's not polaron beam. So the turret is using those little pulse beams, and I speculate that the rear turret is only around 5 to 10,000 terawatts. Now, the reason I say that is the runabouts that are hit by this, it took 2 shots and it didn't kill the runabout. Now, runabouts are extremely tough. They're not like normal shuttles where they can't. They're designed to work in really thick and dangerous atmosphere, and so they have a very thick and robust hull. Like it's almost, you can almost say that a runabout is armored, and so that's why runabouts are able to, engage larger ships and survive, is because they have a really powerful hull. Now I know that we do see an episode where one of them gets shot. Their shields are not, in the beginning their shields are just the same as any other, runabout, and they're not really anything to be gawking at. But they can also be modularized. But remember, when we saw this, they weren't using a defensive module on the runabout. The runabout shields, or actually no, the runabout was, I take it back. The runabout was set up, and it took 3 hours for the runabouts to get ready for defense. So take what I just said back. Damn it, I hate to have to go back and edit this, but I'm going to leave it anyways because it's going to take too long to fix this. Anyways, I was wrong. Remember, it took 3 hours to get the runabout ready for a defensive mission. But that doesn't matter because the shields didn't work. Because remember, Federation shields can't stop polaron beam weaponry. So it got hit twice, it didn't die. So the turret has got to be around 5 to 10,000 at max. So I just wanted to share that information with you guys. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the Dominion's offensive capabilities, which is a totally different discussion. Defenses are moderate. Its offensive capabilities are enormous. So this small attack ship can fire a volley of 15 shots. So it's probably 5 per polaron beam. Now, what's so amazing about that is this is hitting with a Galaxy class level firepower. At 15 shots a volley, we're looking at 975 terawatts of damage. This is close to what a Galaxy class starship can do in firepower. That's crazy strong. Now, to give you an idea, one of the most common ships that a Dominion fighter is going to come across is going to be an Excelsior, right? Now, obviously, the Excelsior is using Type 9 phasers. Type 9 phasers, if you take, they can fire 20 times. It's 260,000, right? So at 260,000, you can see there is a huge change in firepower, because you're looking at a phaser. A Type 9 phaser is hitting for about 20,000. And then the polaron beams are hitting for 65,000. So there's a huge difference in the firepower that you're getting. So remember, if you don't kill the Dominion bug ship immediately, it's going to be hitting you as if a Galaxy class starship is attacking you. So keep that in mind. Alright, so imagine you're in a situation where you're dealing with the JemHadar, right? You're in a battle simulation, or you're in a battle for your life here. Now, think about how dangerous what I just said is. Each one of these ships is hitting you for almost a Galaxy class level of firepower. If these ships break your line, they get into there, right? What you don't destroy, what's going to happen is they are going to attack your ships, and they are going to hit you with just absolutely an enormous amount of firepower. Just 4 squads of JemHadar fighters will deliver 11,700,000 terawatts of damage to your fleet, right? Now, that is absolutely astonishing and amazing how much damage your fleet is going to take by fighting the JemHadar. You are going to take absolutely enormous and heavy losses, because that is a ridiculous amount of firepower. So let's kind of analyze how much damage, a few JemHadar regiments making it through your lines can do to your ships once they get into range. So 3 JemHadar fighters letting their full barrage of 15 shots onto an Excelsior class starship, 3 of those ships would easily take out an Excelsior. No problem at all. Excelsior's hull and shields are around 1,465,000. They're going to get obliterated. Now, you look at the Centaur, 1,556,666. So even the Sabres are going to get obliterated as well. So you would need a bigger ship in order to survive the first barrage from a JemHadar attack, right? So ships that are like the Steam Runner, which are going to be using like ablative hull armor, they're going to be able to withstand those blasts because those 3 ships together are bringing 2,925 terawatts of damage. A Steam Runner, is a stronger ship, and the Steam Runner can survive up to 4,106,700. So that's its value of its shields and hull. So it could survive and it could return fire. Now that's just to give you an idea, like how dangerous the JemHadar actually are. You could blow them up, but if you don't destroy these ships and they're just flying around your fleet attacking things, you have to destroy these ships. It is absolutely a necessity to focus them out and kill them because they have so much firepower. They're like a mobile turret flying around killing you. And they're honestly, when I started reviewing this and looking at them, like how advanced they are, their weapons and shielding, I wasn't too impressed until I got to this point and I realized, and I started doing formulas and I started seeing the offensive capabilities of the ship, and I went, wow, this ship is dangerous. This is a deadly starship. I mean, think about this ship gets in range. It's hard to shoot. It's fast and maneuverable, and it is unbelievably strong. It hits you hard. This is a deadly, deadly ship. Alright, so with that being said, one of the things I do want to talk about is a major Achilles heel to the JemHadar fighter. Is if you are fighting at far distance, this ship is going to take heavy losses. So if you had a fleet like this coming in to fight the fleet that you see before us, each one of these ships could definitely torpedo this ship to death at range. So JemHadar ships don't care about their torpedoes. This is why you don't see them fighting from long range and bothering with that. They want to be up close and hit you hard and get you where they can take you out. They're focusing on their medium range weapons because Polaron beam weapons are a medium range weapon. It's like 100 kilometers or something is what they're able to do. So they're half that of a standard Federation phaser. And then obviously torpedoes can shoot much further, but I mean they're better than Klingon disruptors and Romulan disruptors by far. But when it comes to the range, like it's like 100 kilometers, I think is what it is. And that's pretty good, and they're able to do a lot of damage with that. So they get in there, they get close to you. That's what they want to do. They don't want to fight you with torpedoes, and that's basically how they work. And so I'm going to kind of talk about some of the Doctrine fleets now and how they operate. So one of the things about JemHadar ships is they'll have their cruisers in the background giving commands for them to go and attack high-profile targets. Like, for an example, if they're going to be attacked, they want to get something that's hitting big capital ships with a lot of firepower, they're going to focus out things like the Norways, and they're going to go directly after the Akiras. Those things that are able to destroy prime targets by torpedoing to death or using a lance phaser or something. So those are things that they're going to focus out and destroy. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the Doctrine and where the JemHadar fighter is in the fleet composition. So I've talked about this before in other videos, but we want to especially talk about this. So typically the fleets are going to have JemHadar fighters in the front, and then they're going to have the cruisers in the back, and then in the middle sections is where the Galors are. So Galors are actually hitting for a decent amount. But the reason the JemHadar fighters are in the front is because there's a lot of them. They're going to soak up fire, and they're going to immediately go after the fleet, right? They're going to go in there, and they're going to engage, and then they're going to start attacking ships, moving in and out there, and going after those key targets. So let's kind of think about that fleet composition. Remember, that is 4 squads of 3. So we're only talking about 12 JemHadar fighters. So if you have 12 JemHadar fighters and they break through the lines, they get into there, how many ships could they destroy before you blow them up? So surprisingly, if you look at the data, if that fleet of 12 ships gets behind the lines, they could by themselves destroy 17 Mirandas in the first barrage. So remember, each one of those ships is going to fire 15 times. They could kill 17 Mirandas, and they could kill 8 Excelsiors right off the bat, or they could focus out and kill 4 Galaxy classes. So those 12 fighters, if they're not destroyed and they're in your back lines, you know they're going to go after those Galaxy. Those are prime targets. They could destroy 4 of them in the first barrage. So think about that. The first barrage. This is what they could do to a fleet in the first seconds of engagements. I mean, that's crazy strong. Can you imagine having 17 starships just die from 12 right off the bat? Just instantly, like that, you're gone. Or losing 8 cruisers, or even worse, losing 4 battleships right off the bat in the first few seconds. This is why the JemHadar fighter is so absolutely dangerous, because these ships, now instead of destroying the stronger Galors or taking out the cruisers for the JemHadar, they've got to kill those JemHadar fighters. And why they're going around and killing the JemHadar fighters, they're going to take significant blasts and significant damages from the Cardassians. So those Cardassians are hitting with some pretty powerful weapons. And so the JemHadar fighters are basically making it so you have to either kill those targets or you're going to get obliterated. So the Federation ships, yeah, they're going to get behind the lines. They're going to attack some of those Galors, but their primary focus should be on destroying the JemHadar ships, because once you destroy those JemHadar ships and each ship starts going, then the amount of firepower that's being delivered to your fleet is drastically reduced with each one being lost. So overall, when I look at this and you look at the kind of scaling, the JemHadar fighter doesn't first off appear to be that dangerous. Once you take in consideration all its technology, its firepower, its volley rate, this ship isn't just dangerous, it's absolutely terrifyingly dangerous. And then think about this. Imagine Starfleet in the beginning parts of the war. Now, we're talking about ships with their shields, right? Imagine the losses the Federation took fighting the JemHadar fighters when they don't have shields. The Klingons and the Romulans. Can you imagine how bad that fight was? I mean, they must have taken enormous losses not having shields. I mean, just to kind of give you an idea about that, like, let's just look at the Miranda, right? So the Miranda has a value of 675,000. If it just has a hull value, it's 285,000. That's the point value. It's losing a third of what it could do. Now you look at a Galaxy class, like a standard Galaxy has a shield that are really good, right? So it's like it's close to 3,000 or 3 million points, right? So it's 2,946,000. You look at only the hull value, you lose those shields, that thing goes down to 1,191,000. I mean, that's really, really bad news for the Federation. So you can see why the Norway's Defiance, Sabres, and Steamrunners and Akiras, there were not very many of them left, because those are the only ships, because of their armor, would be able to basically do anything against the JemHadar, because the ablative hull armor, could give them a certain amount of protection, and they could fight reasonably well. I mean, a steam runner, its hull alone is 2,351,000. So, I mean, that's able to take a lot of damage. And then, just the Defiant is 1,430,000. We can look at a Saber. A Saber is not very impressive. It's around 516,666 for its hull. So that's not super impressive, but the JemHadar ships are just absolutely dangerous. The JemHadar fighters are monsters. And you think about how quickly they can produce them. Like, I think the Federation, the Klingons, and the Romulans, obviously they won the war. But I think a lot of the reason that they were able to win this war is because on paper, when you're looking at these stats and stuff, the Federation are really tanky. But the JemHadar are absolutely bypassing all that. I mean, even with their shields, they're just so much firepower. The cloaking devices that the Romulans and the Klingons were using in surprising the JemHadar and destroying them is what saved the Alliance, in my opinion. Because the JemHadar ships, you get behind them, when you do a surprise attack from behind them, they're dead. You can take them out really quickly. So if you got lots of birds of prey and you have lots of, cloaked vessels, destroying them left and right, that's the only way you could deal with the JemHadar. But, they obviously found this out very quickly, and then were flying around in pairs, and if a ship was attacked or lost, they're usually hitting in groups of 3s and stuff. So you can take one out, and then the other two are immediately going to either ram you, or they're going to turn around and they're going to be able to engage you quickly. So you had to have had decent fleets just decloaking, destroying the JemHadar fighters, and then getting out of there before the other JemHadar support ships come in and come after you. Now that's my opinion about the JemHadar, and then the JemHadar fighters, and how they fight, how they operate, their technology, and why they are hands down the most dangerous starship out there. I don't think that there's any ship that can compare to this, because the amount of ships you can produce, very few crew, material wise it's very low, it's fast, it's effective, and then most importantly, it's super cheap. And when I say cheap, I mean it's easy to produce. This is a warship. This is the warship. Looking at everything I've seen, I don't think there is a ship in the Star Trek universe that comes close to being as dangerous as the JemHadar fighter in an overall big picture. Low crew, incredibly powerful firepower, easy to produce. They can sense cloaked ships if you get close enough. They can beam people, from a far distance. They can beam through a lot of shields. They can land if they can't get through that, they take down the shields. They can land and drop off their troops. And then the JemHadar themselves are very dangerous. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this analysis of the JemHadar fighter. I spent a little more time on this video than I have others because I just think the JemHadar deserve more time, and they don't seem to get that much out there, and I want to show the JemHadar some love. And so with that being said, I want to thank all of you guys for watching this video, and with that being said, remember, victory is life.
If you like this content, please subscribe and tell your friends. If you're a fan of Star Trek, make a comment. It makes a difference. With that being said, thank you all for watching Trek Wars.